Hitler's Allies, Episode 2, Bulgaria, during the Second World War. I'm moving directly to the backstory. March 3rd, 1878, the Treaty of San Stefano was signed between the Russian and Ottoman Empire, and they have been at war with each other in the Russo-Turkish War. And this treaty led to independence was given for Romania, Serbia, and Montenegro, which have been under Ottoman rule in one way or another. And this treaty also was given for the Bulgarian minorities living within the Ottoman Empire. They were given borders for a Bulgarian state, but this state was only going to be a puppet state under Russia, for they were trying to get naval bases on the Mediterranean Sea. This angered Britain because they wanted the Russian navy to be built up in the Black Sea. And for the Bulgarians, however, this had ended 400 years of Ottoman Turkish rule. And March the 3rd are also the national day in Bulgaria today. In June of 1878, with war on the horizon between Britain and Russia, the Congress or Treaty of Berlin was set up to persuade both sides. And this now treaty led that it was the creation of the Principality of Bulgaria. It was finally given independence, but the borders was like this to satisfy both Britain and Russia. The green area was to be part of this new Bulgaria, the Principality of Bulgaria. The pink area was Eastern Romania, and which was going to be a vassal state to the Ottoman Empire. The yellow area was given to Serbia, and the orange area was ruled under Ottoman Empire directly. The Balkan Wars. The First Balkan War from 1912 to 1913, were when Bulgaria, Serbia, Montenegro and Greece teamed up into the Balkan League and military alliance, and they together attacked the Ottoman Empire in the Balkans, which had ethnic minorities of Bulgarians, Serbs, Montenegrins and Greeks minorities. And in the end, in 1913, the Treaty of London was signed and settled on these borders. Bulgaria, however, didn't like these borders. And it led to the Second Balkan War, where Bulgaria attacked both Greece and Serbia. And it was just a standstill. No one gained so much ground, but in just 4 seconds after this, Romania and the Ottoman Empire joined in and attacked Bulgaria, and in the end, Bulgaria surrendered. The peace treaty was in the Treaty of Bucharest, where these borders was settled for Bulgaria, but many Bulgarians wanted to take these territories. World War I. Bulgaria was in the beginning of the war neutral, but later in 1915, led by this guy, Tsar Ferdinand I, the Tsar of Bulgaria, joined up in 1915 alongside the German empires and the Central Powers, and because he wanted to try to take back these territories, which was in Allied or Allied-leading countries. As we all know, for the Central Powers, they lost the war, and thereby Bulgaria had to surrender, and they had to cede these territories to Greece and Yugoslavia, or Serbia, which became Yugoslavia after the war. And in all these wars, or wars for national unification as they are known in Bulgaria, all these wars, a total of 103,923 killed for Bulgaria. Bulgaria was in no state of fighting any more wars. The interwar period. When the war was lost, Tsar Ferdinand I couldn't stay in power and he was forced to abdicate and went into exile. After this, Alexander Stamboliski, who became the new Prime Minister for Bulgaria, he was the first democratically elected Prime Minister in Bulgarian history, and he also wanted to create a constitutional monarchy under Boris III, who became the new Tsar of Bulgaria. And this was now the new Tsardom of Bulgaria, which had a democratically elected government with a constitutional monarchy. But this new Bulgaria had to pay massive war reparations to Yugoslavia and Romania. Also in Macedonia, which was now part of Yugoslavia, and a territory which Bulgaria wanted back, but not now because they didn't want to make any wars, many Bulgarian minorities living in Macedonia moved into Bulgaria. And Stamboliski, he was a socialist, and what does socialists do? Yeah, they are doing reforms. He wanted to do socialist reforms, and this brought oppositions from the Tsar himself, the state owners, and the officers within the small but influential Bulgarian army. And also another bitter enemy for Stamboliski's government was the Internal Macedonian Revolutionary Organization, which was in reality revolutionaries who wanted to take back Macedonia with force. And during these times, Stamboliski did the most stupidest choice he ever could do. Stamboliski aligned himself with this man, Georgy Dimitrov, and he was leader for the Bulgarian Communist Party, and also opened up relations with the newly established Soviet Union. And in March 1923, Stamboliski made an agreement with Yugoslavia to accept the borders between them as permanent. This was, however, the boiling point and the final straw for Stamboliski's government. In June 9, 1923, a nationalist coup occurred in Sofia, the capital, and so where Stamboliski was assassinated. And this led to this man to take over, Alexander Tsankov, a right-wing politician, and he had support from the Macedonian revolutionaries, the army, and the Tsar himself. This new government brutally suppressed farmers and communists, and the communist leader, Dimitrov, he went into exile in the Soviet Union. This suppression led that the communists answered with assassination attempts on the Tsar twice, but both failed, and in response the government answered with even more suppressions on the communists and farmers. Even in this time of instability, there was a short war or a crisis on the Greek-Bulgarian border, and internationally it's called the Greek-Bulgarian crisis, but locally it's called the War of the Stray Dog, and I think that's a very good name, and of very good reason, because in October 1925 a dog ran over the border into Bulgaria. A Greek captain on the border, which owned the dog, he also ran after his dog and accidentally crossed the border, where he was shot. And that led to tensions between Greece and Bulgaria, and the Greek forces stationed in the area answered by invading and occupying the small village of Petrish in southern Bulgaria. But then the League of Nations stepped in and called for a ceasefire and put their trust in the Bulgarians. So Bulgaria won this short war, which only lasted 1 week. The years following the War of the Stray Dog, there was finally some kind of stability within Bulgaria. Nothing much happened. But then a fine morning on October 29, 1929, the stock market in New York City crashed and an economic crisis spread over the world, including Bulgaria. So in May 1934, another coup happened in Sofia, denouncing the democratic government and put this man in charge, Kimon Georgiev, as prime minister. Just 1 year after the coup, the Tsar stepped in and told the prime minister that he was to resign, and he resigned. then the Tsar took absolute control and ruled Bulgaria via this man and this man as puppet prime minister. Behind the scene, the Tsar was in true control. In the beginning of the Tsar's rule, he did two things. The first, the opposition. All the opposition parties was banned in Bulgaria. And also, the second thing, he reversed the mistakes that Stamboliski did. He, instead of aligning himself with the Soviet Union, he aligned himself with Fascist Italy, led by Mussolini, and later with Nazi Germany. World War II. In late 1930s, or in other words, in 1939, the map of Europe was like this. And in September of that year, September 1939, Hitler invaded Poland and started World War II. And in 1940, just 1 year after this, the map of Europe was like this. Hitler, now adamant, determined, and firmly believed that the German army, the Wehrmacht, was invincible. And in winter of 1940, he ordered the German army to invade the Soviet Union. But it would take time for the German army to relocate from Western Europe to Eastern Europe along the German-Russian border. So in the meantime, Hitler focused in southeastern Europe. The nations of the Balkans was now divided if they would join the Allies, the Axis, or try to stay neutral. For example, Hungary and Romania had joined the Axis and was now members of the Axis powers. Greece was pro-British. The only nations left who were neutral were Yugoslavia and Bulgaria. And in March of 1941, Yugoslavia joined the Axis powers. But just a few days after they joined, a coup d'etat staged by Yugoslavian Air Force officers who were sympathetic to Britain switched sides and left the Axis and became pro-Allied instead. Now it was only Bulgaria left. In the winter of 1940, Hitler presented the Bulgarian government Treaty of Craiova, which was in reality that Bulgaria will have southern Dobruja, which was lost to the Romanians in the Second Balkan War and in World War I, that it will be returned to Bulgaria. And a time after this, the Bulgarian government agreed that German support troops or combat engineers to be entered into Bulgarian territory. They were going to make assembly areas for the German army when they were planning to invade Greece and Yugoslavia. And for the most important part, they built bridges over the Danube from Romania. And in March of 1941, Bulgaria officially joined the Axis powers, and the German troops began to arrive in Bulgaria. Before the Balkan campaign officially began, when the German army invaded the Balkans, Italy had tried to match his German ally. Before the Germans invaded Poland in 1939, Italy had done something similar but smaller. They invaded and conquered Albania. And after the fall of France in 1940, Italy demanded that Greece become an Italian colony. But the Greeks refused. And that led to the Italo-Greek War, which lasted from October of 1940 to the April of 1941, where Italy and Greece fought alongside the Albanian-Greek border. Even if the Italians had 87,000 troops against Greek army 50,000 troops, the losses were that the Italians lost over 89,000 men, where the Greeks has lost over 58,000 men. Note that the number of the soldiers increases on both sides as long as the war progressed, because it's lasting from the autumn across winter of 1940-41 all the way to the spring of April 1941. This was a setback for the Axis powers, because when Italy invaded Greece, the Greek government welcomed in British forces and forces from the British Commonwealth from New Zealand and Australia to support the Greek army against the Italians. Even worse, the RAF, the Royal Air Force of Britain, was now welcomed to Greek air bases and was now in range of the Ploiești oil fields in Romania, which supplied much of Germany's oil supplies. Hitler, now furious that the British had a foothold in Europe after they was kicked out from France in 1940, so in April 6, 1941, the German Wehrmacht invaded Yugoslavia and Greece, kicked out the Allies again. Bulgaria didn't take part in any fighting in the Balkan campaign, but the areas of Macedonia and Thrace was not occupied by German or Italian forces, they were occupied by the Bulgarian army. Bulgaria has now received all their territories that they have dearly wanted for all these years, and now the map of Bulgaria looked like this. There was, however, a price to pay for Bulgaria for receiving this land by the Germans. In the summer of 1941, Hitler demanded that Bulgaria, or especially he said it to Tsar Boris III, that Bulgaria should declare war against the Allied powers, which Bulgaria did. They did declare war on England and the United States, but they did not declare war on the Soviet Union because of much of the Bulgarian population was pro-Russian, regardless if they were communists. Another thing was the Holocaust. Bulgaria had issued a law that the law for the protection of the nation, which was passed in the parliament in January of 1941, which was in reality a copy of the Nuremberg laws in Germany, which took the citizenship away from Bulgarian Jews and other restrictions of Bulgarian Jews. Of the 50,000 Jews who lived in Bulgaria at the time, around 14,000 was sent to the extermination camps in Poland. But after the war, around 50,000 Jews had survived. And now do you wonder, how? The person to thank that for is this man, Dimitar Peshev, who is, in my point of view, a Bulgarian Raoul Wallenberg. But I will talk more about Wallenberg in the Hungarian episode. Dimitar Peshev was the Minister of Justice within the Bulgarian government. He had first been supportive of the German alliance and the anti-Jewish laws which was passed within the Bulgarian government, but he has now begun to back down on the Jewish thinking and was proclaiming that no Bulgarian citizens, regardless of religions, was going to be deported to Nazi Germany. But by 1943, the Germans asked or especially the Nazis, asked the Bulgarian government or those who were sitting just high up to hand over the Jewish population, which they agreed upon, and this was very top secret. Peshev found out about this anyway, and he had now switched his opinion of the Jews, that the Jews were not going to be deported from Bulgarian soil. And so he met up with the Minister of Interior, Petar Gabrowski, and he told him like this: I know about the Jews. Which the minister answered, I don't know what you're talking about. One day after this, the minister visited the Prime Minister, Bogdan Vilov, and said, Peshev knows. After fierce debate, the Prime Minister gave in and called that all deportations was to be called off. On the morning of the 9th of March 1943, as the Bulgarian police was rallying and preparing for the rounding up of the Jews within Bulgaria, they received the halt order from the government. So all the Jews living within Bulgaria was saved from the Holocaust. However, the order didn't reach the occupied areas of Macedonia and Thrace, and just one day after this, on the 10th of March, the Bulgarian security forces within the occupied regions round up the Jews, and nearly all of the Jews within Thrace, over 4,000, was arrested and handed over to the Germans, and they later was deported to the death camps of Treblinka and Auschwitz. After this, Peshev was fired from the government, but his actions has saved the almost entire Jewish population of Bulgaria. Over 50,000 was saved from death. In August of 1943, Bulgaria was now on paper at war with the United Kingdom and the United States, and this had been response of that the Allies has bombed Sofia, the Bulgarian capital. And with Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union has led that the Bulgarian Communist Party, which had moved underground and was now doing resistance movement within Bulgaria. The Bulgarian resistance was called the Fatherland Front. And on the 9th of August 1943, the Tsar was going on a visit to Hitler. Hitler was most furious of that Bulgaria has not deported its Jews to the extermination camps in Poland, and that they have not declared war on the Soviet Union, nor sent any Bulgarian soldiers to the Eastern Front. Tsar Boris replied that they needed the Jews for slave labor in Bulgaria to repair damages caused by the Allied bombings. They had declared a symbolic war against the United Kingdom and the USA because the Allies couldn't reach Bulgaria if they didn't invade Greece, but Greece was still under German occupation back then. But they didn't answer the matter concerning over the Soviet Union, because Bulgarian and Russian cultures are mostly the same. They have the same religion, they have the same culture celebration, mostly similar. Heck, they have even a similar alphabet. So why should they declare war against a country which are mostly similar to your home? After the meeting on the 28th of August 1943, Tsar Boris III mysteriously died when he returned to Sofia. The rumor says that he was poisoned by the Germans, but it has not been proved. Now is the problem of succession. The most obvious choice is that the oldest son of Tsar Boris will take over the throne, and his oldest son was Simeon II, and he is still alive today. But back then in 1943, he was 6 years old, and thus unable to rule. So in his place came a regency council, where the Tsar's brother, Prince Kirill, was made head of the regency council. And the regent was this man, the General Milkov, who was made regent over Bulgaria. And he was to rule in Simeon's place until he was able to rule in the right age. Tsar Boris's symbolic war against the Western Allies proved to be a fiasco. It was so real that after his death, the British and Americans intensified their bombings over Sofia, and it was going to be worse. 1944. In August of 1944, Bulgaria's northern neighbor, Romania, who was also an Axis member, had surrendered to the advancing Soviet forces. So on the 28th of August 1944, Bulgaria made a statement that they were in the German Allied War, but they were not in the German-Soviet War. So the Bulgarians then told the German troops within Bulgaria that they were to leave Bulgaria. But it was not enough. The Fatherland Front, the communist partisans and resistance movement, as I said before, they were planning for a an overthrow of the Bulgarian government. And they were successfully. They made an armed rebellion and successfully took over the cities of Burgas and Varna on the Bulgarian coast. The Bulgarian army, however, they didn't resist because they were ordered by the government to not fight back. So they just quit. So now the communists in Bulgaria had seized power. And then on the 8th of September 1944, the Soviet Union entered Bulgaria. So overnight after the communist uprising in Varna and Burgas, overnight Bulgaria was transformed into a communist Bulgaria, and they declared war on Nazi Germany. The Fatherland Front also arrested any collaborator who had cooperated with the Germans. The Bulgarian army, small but took part anyway, fought alongside the Red Army, the Russian army, in Macedonia, along the Danube, and in Austria, until the end of the war. The aftermath. In the Paris Peace Conference in 1946, which was settling peace for Bulgaria, they concluded that Bulgaria have to return all its territories they have annexed or conquered during the war to its rightful owner, such as Macedonia and Western Thrace. They were returned to Greece and Yugoslavia, respectively. Bulgaria has to pay war reparations to Yugoslavia and Greece, which were in total of $70 million. And then the Treaty of Craiova, which was signed before Bulgaria officially joined the war, which gave Bulgaria got these territories, the yellow area, which named Southern Dobruja, from Romania. On that peace conference, the Treaty of Craiova was confirmed, and thereby Southern Dobruja will be part of Bulgaria. So it could not be that bad. Not so fast, Homer. I told you in the Finnish episode that they were free from communism and kept their neutral and democratic standard, but Bulgaria didn't and became a part of the Soviet spheres of influence, and they were set up as a communist puppet state to the Soviet Union. Also this guy, Georgy Dimitrov, he returned, and all the collaborators, part of the royal family and the Bulgarian government who had cooperated with the Germans, was executed. And Bulgaria will not see any freedom for over 50 years until the collapse of the Soviet Union. Alright, so let's summarize this. What led up to that the Bulgarians joined up in the Axis powers? First, they wanted historical lands back, which was these areas from the territories of Treaty of San Stefano, which was signed in the 1800s. Those areas lied either in Allied or Allied-leaning countries, but they couldn't do it alone by force. But in World War I, for example, both the Allies and the Germans asked the Bulgarians to join their side, but the Bulgarians asked the question, what territories could Bulgaria get for helping them? The Allies said nothing, and the Germans said you can have everything you want and more. So the choice was obviously join the Germans, who can give anything they wanted. How was it during this time? They could not fight the Russians because of culture and of cultural backgrounds. They had a large pro-Russian population because many respected the Russians and liked them very much. They could not fight any battles because their armies was so small. They could only garrison areas which were occupied. And how it ended? They had to give back most of the land they wanted again to its rightful owners, Yugoslavia and Greece, but they couldn't. But they could keep Southern Dobruja from Romania. It was also the end of the last Tsardom ever, because it was two Tsardoms, the Russian Tsardom and the Bulgarian Tsardom. it was the end of that tsardom. So there are no more tsars in this world. And almost 50 years of communist rule. I hope you enjoyed this episode and thank you for watching. Coming up, Slovakia.